Assalamu alaikum and peace be with you. This is Malik Mujahid and you're watching Muslim Network TV. And we're always there on the Galaxy 19 satellites 24/7 on Amazon Fire TV, Roku, and of course on our own website, muslimnetwork.tv, as well as many other social media, and pretty soon on Apple TV as well. Thank you so much for joining us. We always have critical conversations here, which are important, much needed for America, for Muslim community, and our allies. Working together, we can take America forward and liberate it from fear, hate, and anger, and achieve the new heights. And for that reason, it is extremely important for us to be in conversation not only within America, but with the rest of the world. But the world, which is just an ocean away from us, is United Kingdom, a good friend of the United States, most of the time that is, as well as Muslim in Western Europe. So in the past, we have physical meetings and conversation, and some of the performance from UK and Western Europe has come and made name in the United States. And there are people from the United States who have gone over there in the Muslim community and outside. And some have crossed that barrier, like Yusuf Islam, Cat Stevens. I remember one day, he was coming to America to perform, and his plane was diverted back to somewhere because some Islamophobes flagged him as a bad person. I remember some journalists found out that I have some relationship with him based on a very long term. You see, Yusuf Islam has stopped singing. And so I was the one who persuaded him. So he came here many, many times, was my guest. He will just show up at Sound Vision offices. And I will persuade him to go back into singing. So one day he just called from the airport, "I'm at the airport, come get me." So I went to the O'Hare Airport in Chicago, and he has this huge duffel bags. And it turned out that all of those were filled with his first CD. He started singing again, and he gave me the master. "Here it is. You have been persuading me for so long, and here are the master. Do whatever you want with that." And I thought, instead of we releasing, we get somebody in Hollywood and a major marketing person, but almost everybody refused because it was Islamic content. One of the person says, "Well, I will take it." I said, "Just give me a penny album. Rest is your money. I just want it to be out." He said, "Yeah, if I market it, then I will have to change my identity, my phone number, and be somewhere else." That's how Islamophobia in those days was. But conversation is important between Muslims and neighbors of other faith, with Muslims, with Democrat, Muslims with the Green Party, Muslim with Republicans, and Muslim Network TV is all about conversation. So today is an important conversation, and this conversation is two people who are leaders in America on their right. One is a leader in the media field, another is a leader in the Muslim organization arena. So I would like to introduce them and invite them to talk with them and their achievers. So the first, I don't know how many television channels Muslims have in UK now. Somebody told me 28 or so. But the first one was Islam Channel, and its founder is with us, Muhammad Ali Harrath. Brother Muhammad Ali Harrath, welcome to Muslim Network TV.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullah. You're the pioneer in this field, and we appreciate you finding time to. He's the CEO of Islam Channel. He has organized also the first Global Peace Unity event in 2005, attracting 50,000 people. And one of those events, probably the first one or the second, was I was also invited to speak. And we have over another guest, Dr. Anis Khalid. Dr. Anis Khalid, welcome to Muslim Network TV.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you. And he is chair of Islamic Society of Britain, which is a leading organization of Muslims in the United Kingdom. So first, let me start out. What should I call UK, Britain? Oh, what should be my terminology? I still don't know what it is.
I think Britain is fine. I think we all consider ourselves British.
Okay, Britain. So okay,
Britain works.
Okay, okay,
yeah.
Britain and British. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Is that okay with you, brother Muhammad Ali?
I hope that our co-citizens don't get upset, because that keeps Northern Ireland out of the United.
All right. All right.
The definition of Britain, I think, it doesn't take in consideration Northern Ireland.
All right, all right. So I started a fight among British people right now. So when they say UK, they don't call UK people, right? There's no word like British, UKish.
No UKish. No.
There's nothing called UKish.
No.
So that's the limitation which need to be sorted out. So how Muslims are doing in UK nowadays? I mean, I heard in somewhere that Muslims were disproportionately dying in the pandemic, and the first physician who died were also Muslim physicians. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. I work in the NHS, and I have had.
What is NHS? Nobody knows what is NHS.
Sorry. Of course, I work in the National Health Service here. Okay. So, which is our healthcare for everyone, irrespective of how much they earn or what their background is. And yes, unfortunately, out of the first 50 clinicians that passed away, I think the vast majority of them were from a kind of a Black or ethnic minority background, and a large proportion of them were Muslim. So there is no doubt that in Britain, it has affected the ethnic minority population, the Black population, far greater than the white population. We still don't know why. I think there has been a lot of discussion as to why that is. There's, obviously research takes time to come out. There are hypotheses around vitamin D deficiency and different things. Most people are saying, well, actually, is it to do with the fact that we perhaps live in more extended families, perhaps we're not as fit as others. There's lots of hypotheses flying around, but there is nothing concrete at the moment. But as a clinician who's now working under COVID conditions, we've got all our clinicians to do a special screening, a kind of risk assessment. And by virtue of my ethnicity, I am at higher risk than my white English counterparts. And therefore, I also have to take greater precautions. So it is definitely an issue. I mean, it's something we're dealing with. It's something that we're taking in our stride. But it is a sad reflection that so many people, irrespective of faith and background, have passed away. But a significant number of those are non-white.
Could it be also because there are disproportionately more Muslim and people of color working in the national health system?
Yeah, so we've looked at that as well. So we've looked at the proportionality of numbers of people working, but even despite that, it is still greater. So that proportion is still skewed more than it should be. As I said, there are lots of reasons that we could probably list 15 or 20 reasons that may be the case, but we are, as I said, it's still a hypothesis. There's no real scientific backing to any discussion at the moment.
Brother Muhammad Ali, how many Muslims, you being a leader in media, how many Muslims are there in UK? I think he is tuned out.
I can answer that question for you. At the last census, which was 2011, so we have a census every 10 years. And so we have one due next year, inshallah. The last census, there were 2.7 million Muslims in a population which is now approaching 60 million. So, that's the sort of proportion that you're talking about. Obviously, in the 10 years, it would have increased. Probably quite a lot, and the population of the UK has increased also significantly. So I don't know what the proportionality is at the moment, but at the last census, as I said, about 9 years ago, it was 2.7 million.
So census was done 9 years ago, and now it's about to happen probably every 10 years, I think.
Next year. The next census is 2021, inshallah.
Okay. So how, I mean, in America, you don't ask question about religion. And wasn't that the same case in UK?
Yeah, it was, from my understanding, because I used to be a lecturer at University College London in the UK. And so this, I looked at this information a little bit. And yes, I think the question was first properly introduced in 2001. And the reason was because we wanted to look at health inequalities, about disadvantage, about social exclusion, about discrimination. And it was felt that religious affiliation was an important player, because otherwise what we were doing previous to that is that we had to band the Muslim population as kind of Pakistani, Bangladesh, and kind of from the key Muslim countries. And so it was never clear, actually, well, they're not all Muslim, or there are Muslims. The Muslim population in Britain is the most ethnically diverse, though the majority of them come from Pakistan and Bangladesh.
So what is the proportion of Pakistanis, Bangladeshis, Middle Eastern and Africans, and British Muslims themselves? How many of them are born in UK or Britain?
Yeah, so it's interesting that actually the demographics, and I don't have all the figures to hand, but the demographics of the Muslim population in Britain is quite different in that it's a very young population. So it's a very young population. About 68% of them are from what we would call an Asian background, of which almost 40% are Pakistani background. And then I think there's about 15% Bengali, 10% Afro-Caribbean, and then kind of others. So I think that, I may have got those figures slightly wrong, and obviously they're out of date anyway because of the, the census is going to happen in another year, inshallah. But that gives you an idea that the majority, over 2/3, are from what we would call an Asian background.
So how many of Muslims in UK are born in UK?
Yeah, do you know what? I don't have those figures to hand. I can get them for you quite easily, but I don't have that figure to hand. But what I do know is that it is an increasing number of Muslims are born in the UK. So that population that we're talking about, the significant proportion of that now increasingly is born in the UK, because obviously it's a young population. So, so obviously that UK birth rate is going to be increasing.
So Muslims in US, about 40% of them are born in USA. But overall, we don't have exact figures here because our census does not ask question about religion. Sure. And if I remember correctly, in MCB, Muslim Council of Britain in UK was the one which campaigned that question about religion will be asked, because Muslim will give certain number and have create some demands based on that, and people will question and challenge that's a wrong number. So they started asking. Here, Muslims, evenly divided, although nobody knows exactly, among African American Muslims, who most of them were brought here as slave and rediscovered their identity as Muslim, or decided to liberate themselves from white slavery and become free as Muslim, like Muhammad Ali and Malcolm X and famous people like that. And about 30% or so Arabs, and 30% South Asians, and 10% from Turkish, white Muslims, and things like that. But one of the things which we see is, for example, in Chicago, out of 120 masjids, 80 masjids are run by South Asians. So sometimes we
Sure.
wonder whether our numbers are right or wrong, or it changes different places. So if you look at the masjids in UK or Britain,
Yeah.
how does distribution looks like?
I think the masjid distribution is heavily towards the Asian population, the Indo-Pak Bangladeshi population. I think that, you know, the Black Afro-Caribbean community here is probably about 10% of the community, but I think they also, there's a lot of discrimination both within the Muslim community and outside the Muslim community that unfortunately our brothers and sisters from the Black communities face, and that's probably a different conversation, but obviously all of this has become very topical in light of the recent kind of events and the conversations about Black Lives Matter. But I think that, you know, their own kind of congregations, if you like, they are there, but they're more limited, they're more dispersed, and I think, as I said, the predominant hold in mosques is from the Indian subcontinent.
So when you say Black and Afro-Caribbean, are you combining African in there along with the people from Caribbean?
I am, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is Imam Malik Mujahid, and you're watching Muslim Network TV, and we're talking with two leaders of the British Muslim community, Dr. Khalid, who is chair of Islamic Society of Britain, and Muhammad Ali Harrath, who is founder and CEO of Islamic Channel. We'll be right back after these messages. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back. This is Imam Malik Mujahid, and I'm talking with Dr. Khalid, who is the chair of Islamic Society of Britain, about Muslims in Britain who are, could be called Muslims, British Muslims or Muslims in UK. So Muslims in America, it is said, are relatively better off in the society. And normally people say, as compared to British Muslims, they are more educated here, economically better off. I mean, I'm not quite sure about these statistics, but I have heard that in UK, there is a disproportionate number of Muslims who are in prison system. And I have heard that a disproportionate number of them live in housing, which is not very good housing, and they're concentrated in ghettos as compared to living all across. I mean, Muslims in America have also changes. I mean, African Americans are a relatively lower income group, especially Muslims. And immigrants, many of them are professionals and things like that. And they live all scattered. There are no concentration points, except few here and there where the lot of grocery stores or restaurants will be present. So what is, could you share a little more about how socioeconomically Muslims are doing in UK?
Yeah, I mean, the perceptions that you outlined initially about American Muslims being better educated, better off, those are also the perceptions that I have of the States. here in Britain, we definitely have a significant proportion of British Muslims who we would consider to be socially excluded. You know, if we look at the determinants of health and we look at health disadvantage, you know, the highest rates of heart disease, the highest rates of diabetes, the highest rates of, you know, a lot of the lifestyle preventable diseases are high within the Muslim population, regrettably. Now, part of that may be due to ethnicity, part of it is due to social exclusion. You know, there are many kind of different reasons why those happen, but it's definitely there. And so, yes, the Muslim population is disproportionately present in those markers which show, you know, disadvantage, whether that's housing, whether that's prison, whether that is determinants of health. All those markers, unfortunately, we are kind of lower down. I mean, there are several reasons that, you know, for that. Part of it, you know, stems from the historical kind of nature of the British Empire and, you know, who kind of came over to Britain from the subcontinent. The fact that many of those people were perhaps manual laborers who kind of came over and took kind of quite low paid jobs, you know, worked very, very hard. But that sort of cycle of poverty perhaps is still present.
In US, when looking at the gender level, there are amazing statistics. For example, Gallup organization does survey every night. They call nightly survey. So their organization combined 500 nightly surveys and divided up responses based on the faith. Muslims and Catholics and Protestants and Jewish people and things like that. And amazing finding there in terms of gender equity, it turned out that the Muslim men and Muslim women have the best gender income equity in the whole America. So at the higher income level, the 50,000 and above, Muslim women are just one percentile behind the Muslim men in terms of their income level. Now that widens a little bit at the lower income bracket, but at the higher level, that is very comparable to, say, Jewish men and Jewish women in America. The gap is 30%. Jewish women are 30% behind the Jewish men. I mean, it was startling for me. At the same time, when the question was asked, do you feel respected? They didn't ask in the society or the family or wherever. The contrast to that was that Muslim women feel the least respected of any other faith community. I'm just sharing that to hear from you. What is the level of gender equity between Muslim men and Muslim women in Britain?
So obviously, you know, as a man answering that question, you know, we have to caveat that slightly because obviously, you know, I will give my perspective, but obviously I'm also, you know, in a position of a community organization, and I obviously work in the health service, and so I have different kind of views on this. To put it simply, I think the equity that you talk about in America is not here in Britain. I think that you know, if we broke it down to Muslim men and Muslim women, I would not be surprised. I don't have the figures to hand, but I would not be surprised to find Muslim women languishing very low. And I think the other kind of aspect of equity between gender is the lack of equity in what I call kind of the public spaces. So in Muslim public spaces, primarily mosques, unfortunately, still to this day, we have little equality or equity between the two genders. And I think that there are good examples where obviously there may be women on the trust as trustees on the board, and they may have equal amount of space or equal access. But many of our institutions, regrettably, still do not have that equity that is very necessary.
So if you take any city, say London, what percentage of the mosques have proper space for women to offer salat? I mean, in Chicago, I will give you that out of 120, 127, 128 Jummah places, except 10, 15, all places have space for women. Now, one can argue whether it's the adequate place, proper place, is it as well decorated as the main hall, but they do have space. And what is the situation in UK?
Yeah, it's difficult for me to answer that. I mean, I'm not in London, and I don't really have a handle of the mosques in London. And I would imagine that the majority of them probably also echo what you have just described as a space in Jummah prayers for women is there. But that's not necessarily how I would describe equity. And I think that, as Muslim leaders, as Muslim organizations, we have it's not just about ticking a box that, women can attend the Friday prayers and it's free access. I think, we have to look a little bit more deeply. Are women involved in the decision-making of an institution? Do women have equal access to the resources of any center, of any organization? Me as chair of the Islamic Society of Britain, it is a fair question to me to ask how many of my trustees are women? How many of the kind of projects, the main projects that I lead, how many have women as leaders, or how many have women on their kind of management committees? So I think that, moving away from just what I would call a number representative that this happens, I think we need to kind of go a little bit deeper, at least in Britain. I mean, in America, you may have a different kind of mode of kind of operating. But here I feel that the gender equity or equality, however you want to kind of put it, is there at a level where decisions are taken. And I think that's where, at least in Britain, we need to enhance that. And we need to make sure that, the Muslim spaces are very, very safe and secure for Muslim women, and to do whatever it takes for that to happen.
This is Imam Malik Mujahid, and you're watching Muslim Network TV, and I'm talking with my guest, Dr. Anis Khalid, who chairs the Islamic Society of Britain, and we'll be right back after these messages. Welcome back to Muslim Network TV. This is Imam Malik Mujahid, and with me are two guests from UK, Muhammad Ali Harrath and Dr. Anis Khalid. Muslim didn't have census in UK. Then Muslims have census. Then Muslims didn't have a television. Now I heard there are many television, but the first television is started by Muhammad Ali Harrath, called Islam Channel. About what was it, 15 years ago, Muhammad Ali?
Just over 16 years.
About 16 years ago. So do you think in that the introduction of, and census, I think, are also probably 20 years ago or something? So
the first time it was 2001.
2001, so almost 19 years ago. So, I mean, I have visited UK many times, and last since 1977, first time I visited. I have observed, I could be wrong, there is a substantial amount of Muslim community empowerment which has taken place. There have been more MPs. I remember standing somewhere and somebody told me this is the first MP Muslims have in UK. Now you have many MPs and many, what they call them, Lord in the House of Lords. And so what contribution Islam Channel, Muslim televisions, and census have played in bringing Muslims to the limelight?
Thank you for having me back. You know, Muslims in UK, maybe up to 1989, 1990, the word Muslim and Muslims is very synonym to the word Pakistani, Asian, Kashmiri, something like that, subcontinent. But since then, there was a surge in the number of Muslims coming from other countries. You can say we come from over 54 countries in the UK. So we have our origins stem from Central Asia, Eastern Europe, Western Africa, East Africa, the Middle East, and of course the bulk comes from the Indian subcontinent. So that's that. Secondly, the Muslim community in UK is fairly a very young community. It's only since the 50s people started coming in. With the oil crisis 1973, they allowed people to bring in their families. Everyone came that time from the subcontinent. They came for a 5 years plan, that getting some money, going back, building a house in Pakistan or in the village where they came from, and go back. But the plans, Allah's plans, were quite different. If you look at the Jewish community, it took them 150 years of hard work to get the first member of parliament elected. The first Jew elected to the British Parliament. It was after the Jewish community were established in the UK. When it comes to Muslims, it took them 40 years. So in 40 years, we got Muhammad Sarwar, 1997, the first Muslim.
Yeah, I remember meeting him somewhere. So he was the first one.
Yeah. He's the governor of Punjab now.
Oh, really? So
yeah,
he's still British, is connected quite a bit with Pakistan then?
Yeah, he went back to Pakistan and he became, he's actually now the governor of Punjab. He joined Nawaz Sharif at the beginning and he was governor, then stepped down, then he's back now. Anyway, so he was the first Muslim MP.
In Scotland, I think I was visiting Scotland when somebody introduced this person is standing close to you is the MP. Wasn't he from there? Is the same person?
Yeah, he's from Scotland, from Glasgow.
Okay.
From Glasgow, when he stepped down, his son Anas Sarwar came and he lost his seat, but now he's an MSP, so he's a member of the Scottish Parliament as well. Okay. So alhamdulillah, and then every election after that, the number of Muslims doubled. So from one we went to...
How many are there now in MPs?
I think around 16 now. That's in the House of... Yeah, in the House of Commons, and we have others in House of Lords as well.
And how many? Same number in House of Lords?
Slightly more, I think. We are close to to 20. Yeah.
So you see, this is where the Muslim in US are nowhere to be found. I mean, we are way behind when it comes to what made this happen.
I think one of them is the new Labour, which the new ideology, the new Labour. Although Tony Blair, he has some international crimes, but within the UK, I think he's the person who helped Muslims more than any other politician. To be honest, this is like, we have to take it in fairness. Tony Blair was the first politician to introduce Muslims to House of Commons. He's the first to appoint a Muslim woman as a Muslim man. That's so he was the first to introduce them and give them a seat in the House of Lords. He was the first to appoint a Muslim ambassador. He was the first to Muslim chaplains in prisons, in army, and so on and so forth. And the last thing he tried to do, he wanted to criminalize Islamophobia. He wanted to make Islamophobia similar to Hinduism and Judaism, to have a legal protection.
Let me ask you, what year was he elected? Was it immediately after the census or before census?
Before. He came to power in 1997.
Okay, so yeah. Before the census. So census did not contribute to that change.
Well, one of Tony Blair's also, he accepted the request of the Muslim community to include faith in the census in 2001. So it was under his administration. So that's one of his contributions as well. Mm. And at that time, I remember in 97 up to 2000, there was only an estimate of the number of Muslims. So they were saying Muslims in the UK were around 800,000. Then the census revealed that Muslims are 1.6 million. And the next one, they said, is 2.4 million. And now the Office of National Statistics estimate Muslims to nearly 4 million Muslims. So in terms of overall number, Muslims are increasing in number. In terms of political participation, and now we had Baroness Varsi. She used to be the co-chair of the Conservative Party. We have now the mayor of Greater London. He's a Muslim, Sadiq Khan, Pakistani, and he's someone who is openly and proud Muslim. So he went to Hajj, he prays, he doesn't hide the fact that he is a Muslim. Quite few Muslims were elected to the cabinet. This is something new. The number of Muslims who are born in the UK, I believe now they exceed the 70%. So the number is in the rise. The number of Muslims going to universities is also increasing. We have twice the Secretary General of the Student Union, the UK Student Union, was a Muslim twice for two times, and that's something really really big.
So I'd like to understand that. So what you are telling me is quite encouraging, because Muslims in America are nowhere close when it comes to their political empowerment in the society, that level. Socioeconomically, Muslims in America are better, but their impact on politics and the society. I mean, when I go to UK, often immigration officer I can find in hijabis, I can find officers serving. So presence of Muslim, maybe proportionately they are larger number, maybe country is smaller, but they are visible in UK as compared to in America. So these things, you're giving quite a bit of credit to Tony Blair, also to census. How much of credit you're going to give to your own venture of Islam channel?
Well, if I go back to what I was saying, Muslims, they come from different countries. So we come with the different cultures. And even when you come from a particular country, it doesn't mean you have the same culture. So if you are a Pakistani and if you are from Punjab, it's not the same as if you are from Sindh, for instance, or if you are Pathan coming from Peshawar and Northwest Frontier Province. So, and the same, if you are coming from the Middle East, is quite different if you are Iraqi or a Khaliji or this or that. What we really needed is we needed some kind of a melting pot to get the integration of Muslims from within. So Muslims should integrate. The rate of intermarriage between, say, Bangladeshi and Pakistan is very, very, very low. So you have maybe intermarriage between Irish and Arabs is higher than the intermarriage between Pakistani and Arabs. We have a problem from within us. We have the notion which is understood at the beginning, like Pakistan.
Are you going to connect this conversation to my question? My question is, what role Islam Channel played? And probably you're getting there.
That's what my answer. Okay. My answer, the attempt of Islam, what Islam Channel was trying to do is to contribute to that. So it's to bring all Muslims from different backgrounds, from different culture, into a common platform. That's what we were trying to do. So you have the Black, you have the Asian, you have the Arab, you have the English convert. All of them, they can appear in the same show. All of them, they can be presenters. All of them, they can give fatwas. So we wanted to play the role of the melting pot of Muslims to come from different countries and cultures and have one Muslim community. So it's communities versus community, a community.
So the main achievement you think of Islam Channel is bringing different communities and talking to each other. But now I heard there are many, many more channels, and somebody was telling me there are 28 channels or so, and masjid and television channels are divided between sectarian and ethnic line. How true is that?
That's quite true, actually. For the most, it is understood because small community, they come from different places and they work really hard. Some people, they gave their entire life, 20, 30, 40 years of their life to build.
Uh-oh. We lost your voice. While he gathers his voice.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
If you can you hear me?
No.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, with difficulty.
Okay, good. Can you hear me now?
Go ahead.
Okay, so with television, of course, you have mostly the 25, 26, whatever TV channels, mostly are coming from Pakistan, Bangladesh. So if you have a Bengali channel, of course, it's going to be, although they are Muslims, but they are going to be targeting an audience of Bengali background. If you have a Pakistani channel, usually you are targeting a Pakistani group of people. And even if you are Bangladesh, maybe you are targeting Sylheti or you are targeting people from Dhaka. And if you are Pakistani, are you targeting people from Mirpur or people from Sindh? So those are the channels. What remains true is Islam Channel, it remains true to its values. We are there for everyone, for every Muslim, and especially the new generations. So we're still leading the way in providing a platform that can integrate Muslims from different backgrounds together.
So let me ask you, Dr. Anis Khalid, with so many channels and so many masjid, is Muslim community moving forward?
Yeah, no, I think in general, the path is definitely forward. I think that, obviously, if you look at the demographics of the Muslim community, I think one of the biggest kind of players is we had a lot of immigration, especially in the 60s and the 70s, and their children have really been brought up in Britain as British, with a British identity. And, it is that generation that is really making the difference. That, it is that generation that are the kind of leaders that you you are seeing in kind of different places in particular, and that feel very much at home in Britain as their primary kind of location. They don't feel disconnected with Britain. It's not to say that there aren't challenges. The challenges are immense. If I look at the challenges lying in front of my children, who are just entering university age, they're significantly more difficult than what I faced as a student coming into the workplace. So there are definitely challenges there. Are we moving forward? Yes. Do we have representation in the Houses of Parliament, in different spheres of public and civic life? Yes, we do. Is it enough? No. Do we need more? Yes. Do we need a greater cohort of people kind of getting involved? Yes, we do. Is there still ghettoization in Britain within Muslim communities? Yes, there is. So, there are plenty of challenges there which still remain. The social discourse, of course, has changed significantly with the polarization that we have, the rise of people like, or the fake news kind of way that kind of things have gone, the far right gaining more kind of what I would call edging towards the middle ground more, which has become very kind of sinister in its way, and even the way that the media in general is reporting and kind of covers Muslim organizations and events and people and the whole kind of Islam. It's been there ever since I was a student, but it's becoming more sinister. So the challenges are perhaps different, if not greater.
But Muhammad Ali, is there an impact of Islam channel on the mainstream media? Are there people who work with you as a host, or the producers? Have they gone to mainstream? Are you helping Muslims empower in the overall field of media?
There was a study produced by a group of Muslims, but they are Quilliam Foundation, the brother knows them. They are more closer to the right wing of the British society. And they called it the Islam Channel, Reprogramming the Muslim Community. And it was funded by the Home Office as well. So they got £1 million for that. And they are talking about the role of the Islam Channel on what they call it, reprogramming the Muslim community. When it comes to the mainstream, I think there is not a single media outlet in the UK, whether it's a newspaper or radio or a major website or a television channel, that didn't talk about Islam Channel and its role, whether that in a positive way or 90% of the time in a negative way. So whatever happens to us, whatever we do is always part of the news. When we invite politicians to come to the Global Peace and Unity Conference, which we used to organize, when they take the decision, the decision within the government is taken within the cabinet. So it is discussed as a point within the cabinet meeting. And you will find whether they are going to take part or not in the event that is organized by Islam Channel. You will find it in the mainstream media, sometimes in the first page, whether that is the Telegraph, the Guardian, the Times, the Sun, all of that, for good reason or bad reason, is always there. Quite a few think tank groups, they even shed light on the work of Islam Channel, what we are doing, what we are not doing. In fact, even Fox News, they had a report on myself and Islam Channel as well, and they accused Obama of being connected to us. So during Obama time. So yes, we are present there.
Obama was born in Tunisia. We thought he was born in Kenya.
Well, he was born in the US. He proved that.
Okay. Well, it is interesting conversation. Unfortunately, we miss you for some reason, and a good part of our conversation. I was asking you a question, but it seems the sound was not coming to you. I think we need to have more of this conversation. I learned a great deal. Tell me this briefly. I mean, we're about to conclude now, half a second. We have 3 Muslims in the US Congress, and all 3 of them more or less born and raised here essentially. Is this the same case? Are half of the people who are member of the parliament, or 20 who are in House of Lords, are they half of them at least born in UK, or most of them are first generation British?
I think for the House of Lords, maybe if not all of them, majority of them were born outside the UK. So that's the House of Lords, because usually it's given to people who are of older age and they have a standing within the community and within the society at large. When it comes to the House of Commons, I think the majority now are born, studied and raised in the UK.
Well, thank you so much. I had this impression, and you both corrected me. I mean, you both provide the evidence for that, that although socioeconomically Muslims in America might be better off, when it comes to connection with the society, their presence in the society, their participation in the politics, that, I mean, we don't have a Muslim channel. This is what you're participating is the only Muslim channel. It is started just 2 months ago. I mean, we are not paying attention to media. We do not have many people running for offices. So you're doing way greater. I think there is a extraordinary need for Muslims from UK and Muslims in USA to communicate with each other and maybe learn from each other instead of just getting our preachers and the singers go across the ocean. People who are leaders like both of you need to be part of that conversation. This is Imam Malik Mujahid. You're watching Muslim Network TV. And our guest today, Muhammad Ali Harrath and Dr. Anis Khalid. Thank you, both of you, for being with us. Truly appreciate that. You can always watch us on Galaxy 19 satellite, Amazon Fire TV, Roku, and our own website, muslimnetwork.tv. Many places on YouTube and Facebook, and pretty soon on Apple TV. Thank you, our producer, Sumaya Haider, and our senior intern producer, Zahra Nadeem, for supervising the show and connecting with 2 busy people across the ocean. So thank you all so much. Peace.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.